Everything we're told about the birth of knowledge is a Europe-centric myth. We're taught that the university was born in the cold stone halls of Oxford and Paris. But centuries before those foundations were laid, a woman in Morocco was already building the future. Her name was Fatima al-Fihri. She didn't just build a school, she engineered the very way humanity shares and certifies truth. From the academic degrees we earn today, to the invisible codes that run our modern world, her legacy is the hidden engine of history. I'm your host, and this is Famous and Forgotten Women. The year is 859. The city of Fez is a heartbeat of the Islamic Golden Age, a place where trade, faith, and philosophy collide in narrow, bustling alleys. But to understand how this world changed, we have to look at the woman who stood at its center. Fatima was a woman of deep vision and even deeper loss. Her family had traveled westward to Morocco in search of a new beginning, but amidst the dust and the prayers of Fez, she would face a tragedy that would have broken most. For her, it was the spark. Tragedy was about to give her the ultimate power, a choice. That choice was born from the ashes of her old life. Within a few short months, Fatima found herself alone. She had lost the three pillars of her world: her father, her husband, and her brother. But in their passing, they left her something that, in the 9th century, was a tool of immense power: a massive inheritance. In much of Europe at that time, a woman in her position would have seen her wealth seized by the state or a male guardian. But here she held the keys to her own future. She was now one of the wealthiest individuals in Morocco, and the city was watching. Would she retreat into a life of quiet luxury, or would she do something radical? Her sister, Mariam, chose to build a mosque, a noble, traditional path. But Fatima had a different hunger. She looked at the scholars and seekers pouring into Fez and saw a void. They had faith, but they lacked a home for their minds. She didn't buy a palace. She didn't buy jewels. She bought a valley of barren land. And with a single decision, she committed every last coin to a project that would outlive her for 1,000 years. She was about to build a bridge between the divine and the scientific. To build a monument is one thing. To build a legacy is another. Fatima al-Fihri didn't just sign a contract and walk away. She became the heartbeat of the construction site. But her leadership didn't manifest in shouted orders. It manifested in silence. Tradition tells us that from the very first day the foundation was dug, Fatima began a sacred fast. For the next 18 years, she refused to eat or drink during daylight hours until the work was complete. This wasn't just a religious act. It was a psychological anchor. Every stone laid was a prayer. Every arch raised was a testament to her endurance. Her strategic mind was as sharp as her faith. She refused to use the city's strained water supply, insisting on digging deep wells on her own land to provide for the workers and the future students. She quarried the stone and the sand from the very valley she had bought, ensuring that the university rose literally from the earth it stood upon. But Fatima's genius went far beyond stone and mortar. She was architecting a new kind of independence. She knew that for knowledge to be truly transformative, it had to be free from the whims of politics. To ensure this, she pioneered a revolutionary economic system, the Waqf, or the permanent endowment. She used the remainder of her fortune to buy lands and shops surrounding the university, decreeing that their rent would pay for the teachers' salaries and the students' bread forever. In doing so, she invented the concept of academic freedom. She created a sanctuary where the mind could wander wherever the truth led, because her professors didn't answer to a king. They answered only to the quest for knowledge, founded by the vision of a woman who thought centuries ahead. By the year 859, the gates finally swung open. The refugee from Kairouan had done the impossible. She had built a sanctuary where the mind was as sacred as the soul, and the world was about to knock on her door. While Europe was deep in the Middle Ages, struggling to preserve the remnants of Roman knowledge, Al-Qarawiyyin was becoming a beacon of light. It wasn't just a school for locals, it was a global crossroads. And it held a secret that would eventually shatter the foundations of Western thought. Walking through these horseshoe arches in the 10th century, you would see a sight that will look strangely familiar to any modern student. Scholars sat in the circles or halkas around the massive central pillars. At the head of each circle sat a teacher, perched on an elevated wooden chair, the kursi. When we speak today of a professor's chair at Harvard or Cambridge or an endowed chair at Oxford, we're using a language born in Fatima's courtyard. She didn't just give us a place to learn, she formalized the very hierarchy of higher education. She created a system where teachers' authority was tied to their chair, and their knowledge was certified by a diploma, the ijaza. Among the thousands who passed through these pillars was a young, brilliant Christian scholar named Gerber Dorjak. To his peers in Europe, he was a seeker. To history, he would be known as Pope Sylvester II. Gerber was mesmerized by what he found in Fatima's library. He accounted a system of numbers that the world would never have seen in the West, the Hindu-Arabic numbers. Most importantly, he discovered the concept of cipher, the zero. At the time, Europe was still using Roman numbers. Try to imagine doing complex calculus or launching a satellite using only X's and V's. It is a mathematical dead end. Gerber realized that the knowledge stored in Fatima's university was the key to a scientific revolution. When he returned to Europe and eventually ascended to the papacy, he brought the zero with him. He brought the decimal system. He brought the tools that would eventually allow the Renaissance to happen. Fatima didn't just give us a building. She gave us the method of how humanity shares truth across borders, across religions, and across centuries. She created the first intellectual bridge between the East and the West. Fatima al-Fihri passed away around the year 880. She died in the city she helped transform, leaving behind a legacy that would breathe for over a millennium. She didn't leave a statue. She didn't leave a throne. She left a doorway, one that any seeker of truth could walk through. But as the centuries turned, a strange thing happened. While the university she founded became the heart of global learning, Fatima's own name began to fade. In the history books written in the West, the Dark Ages were painted as a time of total intellectual void. Her contribution was inconvenient to a narrative that claimed the modern world was a purely European invention. They called her the mother of boys, al-Banin, a title of respect, yet one that partially obscured the woman, the architect, and the radical visionary. For 1,000 years, she was a ghost in a machine of history, a woman who changed the world, but whose face we will never truly know. History has a way of choosing who to remember and who to forget. But silence is not permanent. By learning her name, you have already begun to restore her place in the sun. Fatima al-Fihri, architect, visionary, founder. Her story is now part of yours. Famous and Forgotten Women is a series dedicated to the voices in the shadows. Matilda of Tuscany is waiting to tell you her story. Step into the circle below and ensure no woman of history is ever forgotten again.